Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another set of onboarding training webinars here from OneFile. My name's Jake. I'll be your presenter for today. I'm actually the onboarding project specialist here at OneFile. So I guess for those who are not aware, I'm part of a new onboarding team, and we've been put together to better equip our users with resources and knowledge that they need to effectively use OneFile. Okay, so we've been together now since around April, May. We've been busy creating more user guides, written and video. I've also been creating a library of forms for you guys to download, lots of new content, and including these new training sessions. Okay, so we've been running these webinars now, like I said, since around April, May, focusing on different areas of OneFile. So some days we'll have a look at user role specific training sessions, similar to today, where we're having a look at a tutor training webinar. Other days we'll have a look at workflows through the use of likes of plans and templates. And then there's also other sessions where we get to focus on feature sets such as OneFile's new Learning Hub. We've recently taken a break from these webinars. We had a couple of weeks off where we had some time to collect feedback, hear some comments from attendees, and basically review the sessions that we were running. So between now and Christmas, we've gone ahead and set up a whole host of new sessions along with some firm favourites from the months prior. So just before we actually jump into the day, I wanted to quickly take you guys over to the onboarding page. Again, if you're yet to be introduced to the onboarding team, you probably haven't seen this page either. This is a new page. It isn't attached to the website, so to speak. It's usually a link that we've been sending out, but pretty much everything that the team does, the onboarding team, gets put onto this web page. Now, just in case someone wants to visit this page later on, I will drop the URL into the chat, which you should have received. Okay, but I thought we'd just touch upon some of these sessions that we're running between now and Christmas, so you guys have got a better idea of what it is that you could get refreshed on. Okay, so again, for those who are unaware, we do record these sessions as well. Okay, we only save one version of each webinar though. Please do allow a few weeks for these new ones to find their way onto that page. If we jump into book into webinar training, here's what we've got running for the next few weeks. Okay, so we've still got likes of our center manager sessions, both intermediate and advanced. We've still got a session that focuses on the reporting suite within OneFile. When it comes down to tutors, we now have the full range of different tiers, if you like. So we have foundation, intermediate, and advanced. Of course, the foundation we'll be going through today. For features and products, the more newer ones to point out here would probably be the individual learning plans, progress reviews, and a brand new creating, teaching, and learning plan one as well. For other users, we've still got likes of IQA, learners, employers, and observers. And finally, at the bottom, we have a brand new type of webinar, I suppose, for advice and guidance. Okay, so we've got the likes of planning your curriculum of intent within OneFile, what to prepare for audits and compliance inspections, and how to prepare for Ofsted. So please do have a look at these other webinars. We would love to see more of you guys booked onto as many as possible. But today's session, Tutor Foundation Training. Now, just before we jump in, there's some more housekeeping to get out of the way first. So somewhere on your screen right now, usually anchored right, there should be a go-to webinar panel. A couple of features on this panel. One that may interest you the most, however, is questions. Okay, so if you have any comments, questions, or concerns from today's session, then please do feel free to pop them into the question box. However, it will be the end of the session to which we have a look at those. Today's session will probably run for around 20 to 25 minutes, and then any time we have left at the end there will be used to answer your questions. And finally, feedback surveys. So at the end of today's session, whether you guys leave or whether I end it from my side, you should be presented with a feedback survey in your usual internet browser. We would greatly appreciate if you could take the time to complete that survey. It shouldn't take you more than 30 seconds though. It's only around 5 multiple choice questions, but that really helps us gauge to what a session perhaps need amending in the future. Okay, just one final check to make sure that everything's working okay from this side, which I think it is. Good stuff. So, what is it we'll be covering in today's Tutored Foundation webinar? During this session, we will look to cover homepage and dashboards and accessibility. We'll have a look at the likes of the teaching and learning plans and how to actually set work for our learners. Then what happens when an assessment or activity has been completed. We'll quickly touch upon progress reviews, have a look at some really useful pages in the system, such as the gap analysis. We'll touch upon sensory resources, timesheets, and a bit of the off the job. And we'll end with some tutor reports as well. Okay, so let's get rid of the presentation and jump into OneFile. Okay, so we will be hosting today from a tutor's point of view. All right, so this is what your tutors see when you first log in. Okay, so there's a few things to point out here, some navigation things I'd like to touch upon first. The actual first place we're going to visit is not going to be this dashboard that's in front of us, but if you pull your attention to the top right hand corner of the screen here, we've got a couple of quick functions within this toolbar, such as your account tab. Okay, so it should have your name. If you've uploaded a profile picture, that should display in a little bubble as well, and then your user role that you're currently logged in as. So I'm currently logged in as a tutor. Next, there something to be aware of. We do also have the task list and messages as well. There's a basic messaging system built into OneFile, so you can quickly look at your task list, any messages you may have received. Okay, but it's actually within your account tab I want to take you. But within the account tab, you can set your online status. Okay, so whether you're online, away from desk, out of office, that kind of thing. Profile, where you can store your personal information. It isn't necessary to have an account in OneFile, but if you wish to store it, or whether your employer or training provider wishes to store it, then they can do so within Profile. But it's actually the appearance settings we're going to start with today. Okay, so within the appearance settings, we do have the likes of different themes. Now, these themes are mainly to be in line with accessibility. So if there's anyone with any sort of visual impairments or possibly dyslexia and struggles to see text boxes stand out on a web page, then we do have a few themes to hopefully alleviate some of that stress. As we move down, we have, or rather, we use a RAG system throughout the website. So your reds, ambers, greens, or traffic light system, as some people like to call it. This is for highlighting areas of concern, areas of progress, and of course, all the areas in between. So again, if there's sort of any difficulties or objections viewing these colors, again, we do allow you to change them. And then finally, you can choose your preferred fonts along with font size. Now, any of these settings, by the way, they only change it for your account. Okay, so don't worry about changing it for your entire center, so to speak. But these are more in here for the likes of, I guess, large centers that often have the internet settings, their browser settings locked down by like the likes of an IT team, but would really benefit if the font size was just a little bit bigger. Okay, so these are in here, so you can set that for your own account. If not for yourself, it's always useful to know about those appearance settings. You may know someone else who perhaps would benefit from playing around with a few of those. So I always like to begin any sort of new user role session with those. But let's jump back to the homepage now. Let's have a look at some of the more interesting data that we have on this front page. Nothing to note here is the menu across the left-hand side. We can expand this, selecting that little burger icon at the top. Okay, it does expand the menu so you can see what each of the options are. But in regards to the homepage, in regards to what you guys agreed to with when you first log in, it's probably looking something like this. You have a tutor dashboard. Okay, the whole idea of the tutor dashboard is to quickly share some information with you guys in regards to your own workload. So any information that's being displayed within these dashboards are all to do with all the learners that you have assigned to your tutor account. Now we can see we've got the likes of calendar, so any appointments with the learners will be collected within there, any tasks that you have due over the coming weeks. We can see the likes of learners last logged in. Okay, and that goes through with all of these reports on the dashboard. If we wanted to know the information behind it, let's just use this one for example, learners last logged in. If we wanted to know the 9 learners that looks like they haven't logged in over 90 days there, we can actually select that section of the pie chart and it'll take us through to a report with those 9 learners. Not only that, but it'll also show a timestamp right down to the second of when the learner last logged in. So every sort of action on OneFile is timestamped in a similar manner. That basically just means that for the likes of your center managers, there's a full audit report available to them. Jump back to the homepage though, so there is a report hiding behind each of these dashboard widgets, if you like. And we can also see the likes of reviews due, future planned visits, learners on target, overdue portfolio completion dates. And what's great about these dashboards is that they can actually be customized as well. It's not your user role account that would customize it, it will be your center manager, and they set it for the entire user role. So the center manager wouldn't be able to customize yours, but then have a tutor do something different. They'd be set in a dashboard for the tutors, set in a dashboard for the learners, and so on. but it's still useful that it can be customized. As we scroll past the dashboard, we then come across the learner dashboard. So these are all the learners that we have assigned to this tutor. Okay, so useful information from this particular table though. We can see the learner's account, we can see their names, their usernames, if they've uploaded profile pictures, even what class they currently belong to or sit in. We can see the main learning game that they're working towards, followed by these progress and target bars. So we use these bars quite often throughout the website. We find it's a really easy way to gauge where the learner's up to against where they should be up to. So with that, the red bar is the learner's target, where they should be up to by now in their program, which means the green bar is their current progress, depending on what has been signed off within the system. Now, these bars can be customized. Of course, the green bar is very dependent on what work the learner does. The red bar can actually be customized quite a bit in terms of how that generates. How do you anticipate the learner's targets to sort of generate throughout the program? Again, that's something that will be controlled by your center managers. Okay, so let's actually jump into one of our learners now. Let's see if we can set some work. Okay, so I'm going to jump into Mr. Pete Blue for today. Selecting a learner from this table will take you to the learner's portfolio. But once again, we've got lots of important information sort of dotted around this initial page. So at the very top here, we have, of course, the learner's portfolio profile picture rather, and we can see each component that makes up his apprenticeship as well. Looks like this gent's working towards a customer service practitioner standard. Okay, you can also see the current and target progress for each of those components. Underneath, we can see his overall progress. We can see what placement he currently belongs to. We can set a learner status, which is a way of labeling our learner. So this gent's currently on target, so we've sort of labeled it as that, but you may want to highlight if learners are at risk or falling behind or an area of concern. It's a great tool for reporting with later on. Off the job, you can see those systems actually generating a percentage. This gent's currently at 13.4% out of his total 20. And then underneath, we have a plethora of features and sort of interactions with our learner. The main three are the three biggest buttons on this page. We've got the likes of the teaching and learning plans, we've got assessments, and we've got progress reviews. Okay, so hopefully we'll touch upon each of these areas today. So when it comes to setting work within one file, there's several ways around that we could actually do that. We could just do it as a straight activity, or it might be an off-the-job activity where they'll go to a different area of the system to sort of record and reflect on learning that they've done. Or it may be an assessment type activity where it's actually getting mapped to criteria when it gets marked off. Rather than just sending an ad hoc assessment though, you've probably done your activities and learning development and planned that within a teaching and learning plan. So we can create those within the system as well. And basically, all we mean by plan within one file is a collection of activities. Okay, so we're actually going to set some work via a plan today. So let's go ahead and create a new one for this learner. I should mention, by the way, if it was an assessment or a plan that you're going to send over to the learner, you can actually create them as templates, so you can send it to multiple learners at once. Templates isn't something we touch upon within the foundation. I think that's the next one up, your intermediate sessions. But just to be there where you don't have to create this for every individual learner if they're working towards the same activities. Okay, but we're actually creating a plan. You can see we've got details for the plan itself up top here, so a title, which I would highly recommend giving your plans real titles or any of your activities in one file, really. The date this was being delivered. Was it being delivered as a remote or face-to-face visit? If the plans are done during the visits, then do we want to set the next planned visit whilst we're here? Yeah, if we do, we can leave this ticked. If not, we can uncheck that. If we do leave it ticked, we can go ahead and say, okay, it's a new visit. The next time we're going to come down will be in a few weeks' time. Okay, put starts and end dates in there. Again, was it a face-to-face visit? If so, what is the location? Again, all this data just helps you guys report later on, and same with your center managers as well. Okay, so now we've got that visit information in, we can then scroll down and begin to create some tasks for our learner here. Okay, so we're going to use the Add Task button. Okay, so first of all, we choose our assessment method. Now, this is the sort of the default list that we have within the system. But again, your centers can go in here, they can customize these areas, you can delete them, create your own. I'm going to pop one in for an activity for an observation. Okay, because we're here with the learner, so I'm just going to set up a task to let them know what we'll be observing. Okay, that might be a particular process at work, in the workplace, that you want them to sort of observe and make notes and feedback from. You can set these starts and due dates. You can actually change the who the task should be started by as well. In most cases, as this is an observation, it'll be completed by the tutor. But if we selected another one, in fact, we'll do that in just a second. Let's finish this task first. Okay, so we've got some instructions here. We've got letting the learner know what it is that we'll be observing. We can add any amount of resources to this individual task if we wish to. And then we select outcomes. Okay, so we're marrying up this task to criteria. Now, of course, this won't add instant progress, but it does mean when it gets signed off, once the learner's uploaded and everyone's signed it off, then it will add progress because we've already mapped it to the correct criteria. Now, this is actually just a center setting, so if you don't wish to marry all your activities up to criteria when you first send out to learners, it is something that can be done afterwards, but again, that'll be a center manager controlled center setting. Okay, so I've just selected a couple of criteria here from the on-program learning. Now, of course, this being a demo center, I'm not following any real program as such, but of course, I'm sure you guys, having built the plans, would know which criteria or which knowledge, skills, and behaviors that these activities relate to. Okay, so we've got one task in there, it's just an observation. We're going to set up another here for a case study. Okay, we can choose who this task should be started by. We are going to leave it for the learners. Okay, please write a case study on. Okay, and this box can be expanded, and it does look different when it gets sent over to learners, so don't be afraid that we've not got enough room here for comprehensive instructions. We can always make that box bigger, and it is much clearer when it gets sent to the learners. Okay, so we could drop in some resources into here, for example. I think I may have just grabbed my PowerPoint that we had open at the start, but it's not a problem. What's great about adding resources to the task itself rather than the plan or rather than the learner's resource area is that when they come to do this activity, they will have everything they need from that one assessment page because you'll have the attachments on that same page. Okay, again, let's just go ahead and select some on-program learning, save that. So we've collected a couple of tasks here. We're not going to do any more for today, but of course you can keep adding tasks if you wish to. You could stagger those starts and due dates. You could really get a good few months of the learner's program all listed within a plan. But we're going to leave this for time being. I think this is good enough to be sent over to our learners. We can add any further attachments to the wider plan if we wish to. Any feedback and comments to the learner. So I'm just asking to please accept this plan before they begin working through tasks. Okay, you can record any issues arising, perhaps areas of concern that you can see happening for this plan. But once you're happy, you can sign it off at the very bottom of the page. And just so you know, the row that is highlighted yellow is the area which you need to pay attention to. Okay, so just a little tick box. And once we're happy, we can click save. Now, because we've created this as a plan, the plan will get sent to the learner. The learner will also have to sign it to say that he accepts the work. The learners do also have the option to reject, by the way, if they feel like they've already covered those criteria or they've already completed those tasks. They could reject it for those reasons. But let's go with the motion that our learners already accepted this. They accepted it and they've already begun to work through some of those tasks. In fact, he's already finished that case study and he sent it back to us. Okay, so we're going to fill in the rest of the process now. We're going to say that that case study just came back to us. And what do we do at that point? How do we actually mark it? How do we sign it off? So I've just jumped into my task list, which I said earlier on, we can access through the toolbar at the top. And I just went into view all, the big blue button at the bottom there. Okay, and this is our task list. Now you notice some of these have been highlighted in red. That's because, of course, these are now overdue. Okay, it's not just highlighting overdue tasks for learners, but any user roles in the system as well, and that'll be transparent for the center managers. Okay, so they can offer support to you guys where necessary. Okay, so our learner should have sent our case study back. Let's have a look through these tasks. I don't think I can see it here. Okay, I've just paused my screen momentarily, guys, just so I can find the case study. It doesn't seem to have appeared where we wanted it to. see if we can get something sent over. Again, my screen is just paused for the time being. I'll bring it back in just a moment. Okay, so bring you guys back. Apologies about that. I usually have something set up there. Okay, if we jump back into our task list, that case study has been sent back from our learner now. Okay, so we want to open this up, and we can usually see, depending on the reference, again, this is why you want to give your activities real names within the system, so you can probably easily find it rather than module 1, 2, 3, and so on. But I know that this is a case study. That's the default reference that we give case studies, is the CS. So let's jump into this. And this is how the task actually looks for your learners as well when they open up those plans. So you can see those instructions much more clearly now at the top. Again, if there was any attachments, they'll be underneath the learner instructions as well. Details about the assessment. Got the criteria that have been selected. So this is what we first paired up to it. And then the learner's evidence. Now they've actually provided the evidence in the text box, which is good. They could also upload any amount of attachments as well if they wish to. Now, it's down to us as the tutors to sort of read through this evidence now, have a look through this case study and say, do we think they've covered these two on-program points here? If we think we have covered them, then we can give them a tick. Now, we can also actually jump back into their program and set even more criteria if we think this could be cross-referenced with some of the behaviors that they seem to have demonstrated or need to demonstrate within their program as well. We could always jump to that set criteria button and add even more to this particular page. Okay, but we've gone through that. We've said, yeah, we're happy with that. The progress is going to be made on those two particular knowledge points. We can then leave some feedback for our learner. However, this particular tutor doesn't really give the best feedback as such. It's rather stale. There's certainly nothing constructive there for the learners to go back on and work with. So we have got some features that help give that quality feedback, give that pinpoint feedback within one file. That's the thing that Ofsted are always looking for. So I've just come back up to the text-based evidence here for the learner's case today. And let's say that this last sentence doesn't quite make sense. Okay, I'm sure you could say that for the entirety of the evidence here, but let's say that this particular sentence doesn't make sense. Once I've highlighted, I'm then given the option to annotate, which basically means we can just leave notes on that particular sentence. Okay, so whether it is grammatical errors, whether you want the learners to go back, fill out that sentence a little bit more, explain themselves a little bit more, or whatever it may be, that will now remain annotated as such. So when the learners come back to have a look at their feedback, they can hover over and see the annotations, and the same with any IQAs as well. They'll be able to see sort of any highlights and annotations that have been done. So once we're happy, I'll take note of this timesheets box as well. So on every activity within the system, learners can record time against that activity, and they can usually record whether it was completed off the job or not. That helps feed into the actual off the job function that we have within the system. So the learner's already recorded time, so they spent 90 minutes. However, I know that this task was actually done off the job. Okay, during their sort of scheduled off the job a week. So I can override that and say, well, I know this was done as off the job. So if the learner didn't choose to select it or forgot to select it rather, then you guys can as well. And just like before, when we need to sign something off, it highlights the row we need to pay attention to. Once we've signed it, once we click Save and Quit, that will add progress to the dashboard back on the home page. Okay, we can see that Mr. Pete Blue's moved over a fraction of a percentage there, but it's still progressing. Okay, so there's still quite a few things to get through for today. So let's see how quickly we can get through these. So if we jump back to our learners, another thing that you're probably completing will be the likes of progress reviews. Okay, now I'm sure each centre does them differently in terms of how frequent they're done, how they're actually done, if they've changed ever so slightly since you guys have moved on to the new apprenticeship standards. Is it more of a sort of a target setting session now? Whatever it may be, this page can actually customize quite a bit. So from the icon reviews, let's follow it through. I'll kind of show you guys, we've got a very customized version of the review within my centre, but it's certainly nothing out of the realms of what you guys can accomplish with your centre. So first of all, it takes you to the review schedule. Okay, this is where we can schedule the learners' reviews. Each row in this table underneath is a review itself. Okay, so you could go ahead and schedule them all at once if you wish to, or if you want to do it ad hoc, then you can do it that way as well. Now, what this table is actually shown us is each column here is a unit which has been assigned to this learner. Now, again, this is a demo center that we're currently looking at today, so this table doesn't generate quite how it's meant to, mainly because I go in and constantly change all the dates. But with you guys, what you should see with these tables is that you should see quite a low percentage to begin with on that first review, because of course the learners made no progress. And then as they work way through the program, and as you guys keep delivering and conducting progress reviews, we should see that percentage sort of increase as it gets further down the table. Now, if we want to jump into any one of these reviews, just scroll onto the right-hand side and we can open any of the completed ones, or if there's any pending that need signing off as well, or any new ones that need starting. So this is the review page. So like I said, this has been customized ever so slightly. So at the top, we've got all the default fields and sections that we have within this page anyway. And then I've actually put in some custom fields through the custom form builder. Okay, so we can see the likes of off-the-job progression between reviews. We can see unit progression between reviews. Achievements between reviews, which is all the activities and any sort of units that have been signed off since the last review. We can leave reviews for individual units by using this drop down. We can leave a blanket review if we wish to. Add any amount of attachments. Now we have lots of our centres recording their progress reviews, so they don't have to rely on any tutor's minutes being written up towards the end of the week. They can actually just record the session, whether it be audio or video, and then attach that session or attach that file to this page. And then we come across some custom sections that I've created and popped into my progress review, such as agreed actions, rights and responsibilities, support and feedback, and even a section for the employers as well. Okay, so please do speak to your centre managers. Those are the guys that can customize the review pages like this to match your own review process that you have within your delivery. Okay, then back to the default fields with feedback and comments, any agreed action, and then signatures at the bottom. You may notice that with the employer feedback form and the employer actually requiring a signature for this review, your employers can actually be quite interactive with one file. It all really, again, depends on how interactive they are within the delivery at the moment, whether they want to use the system, but they could have quite a part to play in terms of leaving feedback for the learners, countersigning the likes of reviews and plans and other assessments. Okay, so we're going to jump back to Pete's portfolio. There's just one or two more things I'd like to show you guys. Hopefully we'll squeeze them in over the next few minutes. Okay, so one of the things we might want to do is have a look at the learner's progress. Now we can have a look, of course, have a look at these little tables that we have dotted around everywhere. It looks like it's at 100% in most cases, just a few things. Well, endpoint and gateway we wouldn't expect to be done just yet, as we've got a few more things on his on-program learning to finish. But it doesn't really tell us a lot. We might actually want to look into that in a little bit more detail and go, right, well, how many pieces of work has he uploaded towards his on-program learning? How many activities have we done to sort of prepare for that endpoint assessment? Okay, and there's quite a useful tool for that. It's actually hidden within the Progress tab in the portfolio. It's the first icon along called Gap Analysis. Now, as it may sound, this will analyse any gaps within the learner's work so far. But the way it does that is it'll pull in each component that learner is working towards and then breaks it down into its units, outcomes, and individual criteria. Okay, so we can currently looking at the Customer Service Practitioner Standard, the knowledge unit here in particular. And we can see each outcome and each criteria. Now, on the right-hand side, we have a couple more columns, a supporting evidence column and progress. Now, the progress column has little green boxes in there. Now, those boxes actually change colour depending on whether the learner has covered this particular criteria yet or not. So green lets us know that, yes, the learner has covered this. We can also see that through the supporting evidence column. The supporting evidence column will have actual hyperlinks to pieces of work to which the learner has completed and then a tutor mapped to this particular knowledge criteria. So we can see for 1.1 here within the knowledge unit, the learners completed 3 separate activities. Okay, so essentially we'll be able to see all the work that the learner's done from this page already mapped to the correct knowledge, skills and behaviours. Now, if we minimise some of these units, there's a couple of things I'd like to point out, such as different colours. So what if your box isn't green, such as these two? We've got an amber and we've got a red. Well, amber lets us know that work has been set against this. Okay, we can see that things have been uploaded, but is yet to be signed off. And then red, you may have guessed it, lets us know that no work has been done towards this whatsoever. We can also set in what we call consistency rules, which are basically if you have a requirement that learners may have to upload 3 pieces of work or cover a certain or demonstrate certain behaviours on 3 separate occasions, then you can actually write those rules into the system as well. And that's exactly what we've done for the learners on programme learning here. You can see within that progress column, we have 3 boxes. Now, luckily, those boxes are all green because we can see the learners uploaded at least 3 pieces of work for each of those. Okay, of course, if there's only 2 in this support and evidence column, we'd have 2 green and then 1 that's either amber or red. Okay, so gap analysis is really useful to seeing if those sort of requirements have been hit within your delivery. Okay, guys, I know we've hit that 30-minute mark, so I do apologise. I think we're going to run over just ever so slightly today. I do appreciate if you guys could hang in for a few more minutes because I'd love to get to some questions, and I promise there's only a few more things to touch upon. Okay, so let's head back to Mr. Blue's portfolio. Okay, because something we mentioned a little bit earlier on, but didn't really touch upon it, is off the job. So we've already seen today that learners can record time spent and off the job through the assessment page. And you may remember I did mention that you can actually do that on any activity the learners can complete within the system. Okay, so they can always record time spent and they can always record whether that activity was completed off the job. So all this information, all this time that we're recording must be saved and collected somewhere. From our learners portfolio page, one of the icons that we should have underneath is timesheets. Okay, this page is just that. This is where we collect all that time spent along with the off-the-job information. So I've actually just scrolled to the bottom of this page to begin with. So at the very bottom, we'll have entries, and these are just every time the learner's recorded time against an activity. Okay, again, another reason why you probably want to name your activities within the system, so it's not just a big long list of reference codes. Okay, but again, I understand that some of these are case studies. We've got journal entries there, which is the area that's used for off the job primarily. And we can see how much time was spent against each of those activities on the right-hand side, along with whether that had been selected as off the job. As we scroll up, we can see that cumulative time spent across the different assessment methods and those different off the job categories as well, which again, your centre manager's set up. And at the very top of the page, we have the dedicated off the job function, which pretty much calculates the learner's percentage so far, as long as you've got the likes of tutors and learners recording time on behalf of learners. Okay, so all you've got to do is enter the total contracted hours. As long as someone's recording time on behalf of the learner, we can then calculate the actual hours that needs to be completed, the total hours so far, and in turn, an actual percentage. There's also a wider report as well, so you can have a look at that information, all the off-the-job information for all your learners that have been assigned to you. And finally, to end for today, we will just quickly touch upon the resource area, which can be accessed through the left-hand menu. The resource area is a centre-wide resource area. Okay, so which basically means that everyone can access this page, which means it's great for storing all your different kinds of resources. Further to this, though, we can create folders and organise resources into folders, but you can also set permissions on the folders. So you can say, okay, only tutors can access this folder. Okay, things like assessor resources. Or maybe it's only learners can access this folder. And further to that, you could lock it down to learners even further and say, okay, if learners are in a particular class, or if learners are working towards a particular program, a particular learning game, then they can access these folders. Okay, so it's quite useful to, rather than emailing your resources out all the time, trying to find them to then attach them to assessments in the system, you could throw all your resources into this area. You can also save links as well, which is quite useful. Just to mention reports, we won't have any look at any today because I know we've just run over by a couple of minutes, but the reporting suite is really useful for tutors. It can be accessed through the left-hand menu you can see there. If we just have a look at it, it's split. The page itself is split into different sort of categories, such as centre reports, assessment unit reports, tutors, learners, and we've got some customizable ones underneath as well. Okay, these are all pre-built reports which you guys can have a look at a click of a button. Okay, guys, that is pretty much everything we had to show today. I do apologise for running over ever so slightly. Don't think we've quite got back into the swing of it since our short break a week or so ago. We'll have a look at questions in just a moment. So if you haven't already, please do begin preparing those. For anyone who isn't sticking around for questions, thank you very much for attending this afternoon. I do hope it's been useful to have a look at that sort of introduction to the tutor role within one file, some of the more basic functions as well there. Okay, so if you're not sticking around, thank you very much for attending. I do hope to see you on a session in the future. And for everyone else, I'll be back in just a couple of ticks.